Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And we're traveling to Switzerland in today's program. This might be a good time to go to Switzerland because it can be quite pretty during Christmas season. And, of course, Christmas is coming up in just a couple of days. And we're exploring history in Bern. And remember, Bern is not the capital of Switzerland. It is the capital of Switzerland. Geneva and Zurich are not, even though you might think that those places are the capital. It's actually Bern, which is actually a pretty small town. It's only about 130,000 in population. But it's still worth checking out. It's got its own unique kind of charm.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Today we're going to focus more on some of the buildings in Bern and some of the history behind them. But first, guys, as we always do, we're going to read through today's article.
Bern's natural beauty is merely one aspect of its charm. The city's abundant history and cultural landscape are what truly attract visitors worldwide. The well-preserved medieval city center of its old town earned it a place on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1983. The Bern Minster, Switzerland's tallest cathedral, designed in Gothic style and established in 1421, offers visitors a wonderful view of the old town. Its main entrance displays the Last Judgment sculpture, a complex scene of over 200 figures, illustrating individuals either being chosen for heaven or condemned to hell. Each figure is delicately detailed, inviting viewers to pause and closely examine the artwork from below. Another historical site is the famous clock tower, dating back to the 13th century. Initially a defensive structure, the tower was equipped with a clock, which included a basic astronomical clock and musical mechanism in the early 15th century. Today, this clock performs an hourly show during which several moving figures appear and dance. Near the clock tower is the Child Eater Fountain, depicting an ogre consuming a child, alongside a bag filled with more unfortunate infants. Originally made from wood, it was rebuilt in stone during the 16th century for preservation. Throughout the city, numerous fountains like the Child Eater Fountain display unique sculptures inspired by stories from the Bible or local legends. Taking a tour to explore these distinctive fountains is an excellent way to see the old town. In Bern, history whispers in harmony with the quiet Aare River that flows through the city. Come and discover the magic of Bern, where past and present merge in seamless unity. Okay, everybody, it's time for us to discuss the contents of our lesson for today. Again, we are encountering history at every turn in Bern. There's something interesting in terms of history no matter where you go in the city of Bern in Switzerland. Okay, so here in the first part, it says, Bern's natural beauty is merely one aspect of its charm. The city's abundant history and cultural landscape are what truly attract visitors worldwide. So yes, indeed, it does have this natural beauty, but that is just one aspect of its charm. That's just one thing you need to take into consideration if you're visiting Bern. It's just one aspect or one characteristic of the city, of its charm, its special appeal. It actually has more in terms of history and cultural things. It has an abundant history and cultural landscape, and those are what truly attract visitors from all over the world.
Yeah, it's got a well-preserved medieval city center, and it looks like this old town that you're stepping back in time. It's kind of cool to go to those kinds of cities where they haven't ruined it by building really modern buildings right next to these old, beautiful historical buildings, which has now happened in London, I'm just going to say for the record. So, well-preserved just means something has been kept as it was supposed to look originally. It's been taken good care of. They want to prevent something from being ruined, damaged, destroyed, decaying. So you want to preserve things by taking good care of them. Maybe you have an old car and you want to make it look like it's brand new, although it was built in the 1970s or even earlier. You want to preserve something. Also, if you're into gardening and maybe you have an orchard in your yard, if you're lucky, an orchard is just fruit trees. Maybe after you pick that fruit, you want to preserve it. What you do is bottle it, turn it into jam or jelly. Those are called preserves as a noun. But here we're keeping a really old, historical, beautiful area of the city in good shape so that people can see this in years to come, hopefully.
Right, and it's well preserved in the medieval city center. That, of course, means from the Middle Ages. And because of this, it earned its place on the UNESCO World Heritage List way back in 1983. So, of course, lots of famous places in the world are on that list. And the old town in Bern is also on that list. And here in the next paragraph it says, the Bern Minster, Switzerland's tallest cathedral, designed in Gothic style and established in 1421, offers visitors a wonderful view of the old town. So here we've got something called the Bern Minster, which is actually a cathedral. And a cathedral, to me, is just a really big Catholic church. And it's the tallest one there. So if you're into churches or if you're into cathedrals, yes, check this out. It's designed in Gothic style, which is a type of architecture that came from the Middle Ages. And in this particular case, the cathedral dates back to 1421.
Yeah, we use cathedral when we talk about a beautiful, large, usually stone building for the Catholic Church, which is Christian, as Tom said, the Catholic Church. It's the largest, it's the most important church of a diocese where, a group of Catholics will go and worship God. So there are beautiful cathedrals all around Europe. It's one of the fun things that you get to go and see when you're a tourist. If it's Gothic, it's got kind of that style that we associate now with vampires, I think. Gothic is very dark. It's got angles on it. It's not very rounded. It's just beautiful. And if it was established in 1421, it's old. That actually qualifies to be a medieval church. So it offers visitors a wonderful view of the old town. Usually you can walk up steps in some of these cathedrals that are so big and tall in Europe. And then you can look out. It's got a beautiful way to view a city from those steps that go up, yeah.
Indeed. So again, you have a wonderful view of the old town, and its main entrance displays the Last Judgment sculpture, a complex scene of over 200 figures illustrating individuals either being chosen for heaven or condemned to hell. So yes, this is a work of art here. It's a sculpture entitled The Last Judgment, and it's quite complex, okay? It's quite complicated. It's got 200 figures, 200 people, and it's illustrating or showing people either going to heaven or going to hell, okay? So of course, if you go to heaven, that means you're good, you've lived a holy life or whatever. But if you're condemned, you are a sinner and you need to be punished for eternity. So you're condemned to hell. If you're condemned, you are sent someplace for punishment. Somebody could be condemned to jail, for example, for committing a crime or something. And again, if you're a sinner, you will be condemned to hell.
You can also just condemn someone. They don't have to actually go anywhere. If you condemn someone's actions, you're saying to them what you're doing is immoral. What you're doing is wrong. It may not be against the law, but it's immoral, it's wrong. So, according to Christians, you have to, obey the commandments. And if you don't, you're going to go to hell, at least in the Catholic Church. So, to condemn someone here, though, means you're going to spend eternity in hell or heaven, if you were chosen for heaven, if you're a good person. So, each figure is delicately detailed. This is sculpture. So sculpture is when we take some sort of solid object and we can either use a way to carve it, like with an axe or a tool. That way you could carve into wood or stone.And some people use clay to carve figures. We've got a lot of sculptures here in Taiwan of famous people. That's also what they have there. But these figures, and there are a lot of them, 200, which is hard to believe. They are delicately detailed. There's a lot of work done on them. And they invite viewers to pause and just closely examine the artwork from below. It's quite a sight.Right.
This reminds me, of course, of temples here in Taiwan. Of course, there are lots of figures that are carved onto temples and on the columns and stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing, this might be of interest to you. And moving on now to the next paragraph, it says, another historical site is the famous clock tower.Dating back to the 13th century. So that's going back again to medieval times.
Ooh.
We've got this clock tower, which are quite common in Europe, these tall structures that have a clock in them so that everybody in the town knows what time it is. A really famous clock tower is the one in London. Is that called Big Ben or something
Big Ben,
like that?
Yeah.
Or Big Ben is the name of the actual clock itself, but the tower is named something else, but I can't remember.But in any case, that is a clock tower. And gee, are there any clock towers here in Taiwan? I think I used to see clock towers in front of the old train stations, but they've long been torn down. I think there used to be a clock tower in front of the Songshan Airport, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure if it's still there or not. But in any case, you could check out this clock tower in Bern, and it's really old. It goes back or dates back to the 13th century, which would be the 1200s.Which
is really old. If you think back in history, though, no one had a watch or a clock at home, right? They couldn't afford them. So they would build these community clock towers, you could say, so people would know what time it is. I miss that sound. I love the sound of a clock being hit. You'll hear it in Europe a lot still. I don't know if America has any clocks that go off regularly. I hear the school bell from across my street. I live very close to a college, university, and I can hear the school bell. It's not the same. Well, this particular clock bell is really cool. We're going to talk more about it. But first, guys, we're going to take a quick break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天开始带大家到瑞士的 Bern， 它是首都 capital 哦。好，昨天有提到，如果去 Bern 的话，看什么呢？可以去 The Bear Pit 熊坑，然后还有玫瑰园，对不对？那今天呢，还要再谈一谈，除了这两个之外，还有像大教堂，还有时钟塔、石铜喷泉等等。这个都很重要哦。如果真的到瑞士的话，不要只有看雪而已，或者是它的河。好，在第一段的第一句啊，我们来特别注意一下中间这个分词，因为很多的考生他们对于这个分词哦都有点疑惑，到底为什么要用分词呢？基本上先了解一下，分词它也有把句子的语义稍微分隔的意思。那它的功能比逗点还强大一些，它本身是连接词。它本身就是带有连接词的功能，所以分号之后就不需要再加什么连接词来连接左右两个子句哦。可是你想说很奇怪，那这样子不打句点就好了吗？可是如果是打句点的话，句子写了一个句就打句点，跟两句话当中用分词隔开，其实用分词比较能够连接前后子句的文意。例如说第一段的第一句，他说 Bern 的自然的美景只是 merely 迷人的一个面向而已，一个 one aspect 分号，我话还没讲完哦，只是一个面向哦。其实这整个城市的 abundant history 丰富的历史 and cultural landscape才是真正吸引游客的地方。所以分号前面的话还没讲完哦，虽然仅仅只有，但我要强调的是后面。那当然可以把两句话的文意紧密连结。那另外一句话也有一个功能，就是在第一段的第一句其实就把整个文意都包含起来，这就是主题句很重要的功能。好，这句我们还不先放过，因为 are be 动词后面的 what 你可以抓出来，给它两个字叫做 something that。 其实 what 它就是一个疑问词，什么。那如果你要分解它的话，画的就是一个关系子句的所谓的复合关代 something 某个东西跟关代 that。 如果我们说 are something that truly attract visitors worldwide。而 are 后面这里的 what 其实你可以把它换成 things that， 那 things 就很单纯是一个先行词，后面从 that 一直到句尾就是限定用法的关系子句。好，所以城市的这个历史跟景色 are things 就是那些事，什么事呢？ That truly attract visitors worldwide 才是真正吸引游客的那些事物。所以 Bern 到底有什么呢？它其实是保存很完好的中世纪的市中心，还有所谓的文化风景，这个跟很丰富的历史，甚至在1983年就被列入联合国教科文组织的世界遗产名录哦。那接下来我们到第二段呢，就要来看，如果真的到那边去，至少找个什么东西拍照吧。有一个最高的 Cathedral 大教堂，它是一个哥德式的风格来建造于1421年的时候。第二段第一句啊，我们来看一下哦，同样也有非限定用法补充说明关系子句的简化。先行词就是逗点前面的 Switzerland's tallest cathedral， 其实就是逗点前面 the Bern Minster， 它两个都是同位语的概念啦齁。后面逗点之后的 which was 省略掉，我们看到的是关系子句的简化。总而言之，1421年哥德式建筑就这样设计出来。好，真正的动词才出现哦，逗点之后 offers 就给了游客古城区的美景。那特别的地方是在它的入口有展示最后审判的一个雕塑。那最后审判的雕塑就是有超过200个人组合而成的复杂的场景啊，那中间就描绘了上天堂啦或下地狱的审判的人啊，而且每个这个状况啊，每一个 figure 人物都非常的细微，所以会让 visitors 游客呢就会直接停下来观看。我们接下来还要同样的看一下，在第二段第3句这个地方 ，each figure is delicately detailed。好，逗点之后的 inviting， 我们把它还原，变成是 which invites。which invites， 那这里的 which 要小心哦，不是逗点前面的 detail， 因为 detail 本身不能够当先行词，逗点前面的整句话才是 which 的意思。好，整个精致的这个描绘的 figure 人物就邀请了观众，也就是邀请了游客停下来观赏。当然还有另外一个，就是我们刚刚说过的，一开始说的时钟塔，这是另外一个历史景点，可以追溯到西元13世纪的时候，在第一段第一句这个地方啊，逗点之后的 dating 我们还原是 which dates， 好 which 指的就是逗点前面的 the famous clock tower。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It's day 2 of our travel unit, and we're spending more time on the beautiful city of Bern, Switzerland, which is the capital of Switzerland. Now, we've talked about how it has this natural beauty. It's got a lot of scenic views. It looks like you're in a postcard when you go to some of these cities that are quite small like that in Switzerland. They're just gorgeous. But they also have a very well-preserved medieval city center, very old buildings that were built back long, long ago. Now, if you're talking about the Middle Ages, which is the period of medieval history we're talking about, it can go back to 600 AD and then go forward to about 1500 AD. And you'll see that some of these places we've been talking about were built during that period. For example, the first one was the Bern Minster, which is Switzerland's tallest cathedral. And that tallest cathedral was not built in the biggest cities like Geneva or Zurich. It was built in little Bern, which is quite small. It was designed in a Gothic style, established in 1421. And it's got all of these amazing figures that were sculpted onto this particular cathedral. 200 figures. So you just want to stand there and look very closely for a while and appreciate all that artwork. The other thing that we started talking about before the break was the clock tower, and that dates back to the 13th century or the 1200s, which is amazing. It's still standing, even after all these wars. Of course, Switzerland is usually neutral in these world wars, so they get to keep their cities intact.
And they get to keep making their watches as well. But again, we're talking about the famous clock tower, and initially it was a defensive structure, and the tower was equipped with a clock, which included a basic astronomical clock and musical mechanism. Of course, this was built in the early 15th century. And again, if we describe something as being a defensive structure, it's built to defend the city or the area from attackers. So at the time, of course, there were kingdoms and different kinds of people attacking other countries and other kingdoms. So they had to protect themselves. So they built this tower so they could have a lookout there to warn people in the town that the enemy was coming and that the soldiers should get ready to defend the place. So yes, it was initially a defensive structure, in other words, built for the purpose of defending or protecting the city.
It says here it was equipped with a clock. So it started out as a defensive tower. You know, soldiers would stand up very high to warn the village residents or people in that area if the enemy was coming and if a military group was on their way. Well, then they started to make more, practical use of this. They equipped it or installed a clock. So we don't really use installed when we talk about old ancient things, but they equipped it with that. If you equip someone with something, you give him or her the things they need to accomplish something. You can also equip another thing with things. So maybe your office is equipped with the latest technology. You have the fastest computers, the fastest things that you would ever need. You can equip your office with something. You can equip your children with the sports equipment they need, right? So if you have a son or a daughter who plays soccer, you want to equip them with the pads that will protect their knees and their wrists that they wear, have the right uniforms. You can equip yourself with different things that you need to accomplish a goal or a task.
Exactly. So again, we're talking about the famous clock tower. It was originally a defensive structure and it was equipped with a clock. And that clock also included a basic astronomical clock, which has to do with astronomy. Maybe the clock not only told you the time, but it told you the phases of the moon, for example, or the position of the planets. And it also had a musical mechanism so that it could play music at intervals, maybe at the top of the hour or something. It would play a certain kind of song with bells or whatever.
Yeah.
And a mechanism, of course, is just a series of parts and cogs and wheels and gears that produce some kind of result, the mechanism. And that also refers to how something is done in life as in sort of a conceptual way. Like, what is the mechanism for getting someone elected? How is that done? But in this particular case, we're actually talking about machinery, again, gears and cogs and drivetrains and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Tom's right. We'll often use mechanism to talk about things that aren't mechanical, like getting someone elected to a political office. You could say, what's the mechanism to register to vote? Or what's the process? Process would be an even better word there. But mechanism has to do with a part of a machine and how a machine is working. So this was added in the early 15th century. It's so beautiful. When that clock is ringing or strikes 12 or whatever, this little thing goes out and you can see these people just moving around in a circle and they look like they're dancing or doing something cute. It's quite lovely. So today this clock performs an hourly show. Of course, tourists are all gathered below to watch. People who live there aren't as curious, I'm sure. And you can see several moving figures that appear and they look like they're dancing, which is really really spectacular, I think, especially since they built it in the 1400s. That's amazing to me.
Right, so if you're into moving figures, this is the place for you. Moving now to the next paragraph here, it says, near the clock tower is the child eater fountain depicting an ogre consuming a child alongside a bag filled with more unfortunate infants. That seems kind of disturbing to me that they would have some kind of fountain depicting an ogre eating a child. An ogre is kind of a big monster. I guess it's kind of like a troll. Troll is what we would use in, say, the Scandinavian countries.
Well, The Hobbit, the movies The Hobbit, and those have ogres in them, if you remember.
Well, if you remember the Shrek movies, of course, Shrek is an ogre. So some kind of big monster or some kind of big scary creature. And in this particular case, the ogre is eating a child, and there is a bag filled with more children. They are unfortunate infants. An infant is a very small child shortly after it was born. That would be an infant.
Yeah, I would say an infant goes from its birth to about 6 months, you know. Once they are able to kind of sit up and engage with you more, they're just small babies. But yeah, I find it disturbing that in Europe they have a lot of historical buildings with these type of ogres, either on churches, cathedrals, or government buildings that are eating children. It's really disgusting. Who knows where that comes from? Let's not talk about that. So originally, this was made from wood. This particular child eater fountain. And then what did they do? Well, they rebuilt it using stone during the 16th century. That's the 1500s. Sorry, that's kind of strange, but that's what we do. And they did rebuild it for preservation reasons. They wanted to preserve it. Remember, preserve means to keep something in good condition so it doesn't get damaged or destroyed. And throughout the city, there are numerous fountains like the Child Eater Fountain, which display unique sculptures inspired by stories from the Bible or local legends. One thing you'll notice if you ever get the chance to go to Europe is they love fountains. And you think back in time, you know, we didn't have running water. So a lot of people would go to the city center to get their water from these fountains.
Right, so you can check out different stories depicted in those fountains. And taking a tour to explore these distinctive fountains is an excellent way to see the old town. So indeed, check out those fountains, take pictures, and post them on the internet. And here in the final paragraph, it says, Bern. In Bern, history whispers in harmony with the quiet Ara River that flows through the city. Harmony means things go together, especially in music. If you have two or more notes sounding at the same time.
合声.
Exactly. They are in harmony. So we've got history and modern times existing in harmony, at total peace with each other. And yes, we're inviting you to come and explore the magic of Bern, where past and present merge in seamless unity or in seamless harmony. Indeed, the past and the present exist together. It's probably a great place to spend your holiday, especially during the Christmas season. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
That brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
那这个时钟塔本来是一个防御性建筑啦，那因为在15世纪的时候装了一个时钟，然后有一些音乐装置啊，它就是个基本的天文钟。到现在呢，每个时钟啊，在这个时钟会在每个整点的时候表演一场秀哦，所以大家就会去看。我们特别注意一下第3段，在最后一句第3句这个地方。During which 这2个字可以特别抓出来 which 一定是前面的某一个先行词嘛，这个先行词就是An hourly show 每个小时表演一次的节目。那后面因为这个 which 啊，在整个括号从 during 到句尾当中，其实是一个副词的概念，就是在每个整点的期间，所以 which 这个关代前面会有一个介系词 during。那 during 加上 which 代表的是一个时间的副词，所以你会发现 which 之后句子完整，有主词 several moving figures， 动词 appear and dance， 也不缺受词哦，所以 during which 在这里是一个时间概念的一个关代。好，接下来的第4段呢，第一句是一个倒装句哦。倒装句先把地方副词 near the clock tower is the child eater fountain。 这个倒装句是因为为了要承接上面这一段的文意，上面第3段就在讲时钟嘛，那接下来就顺着时钟讲，然后再带出另外一个石铜喷泉。那我们句子还没看完哦，喷泉后面逗点之后的 depicting 本来应该是 which depicts， 这里的 which 就是先行词的石铜喷泉。这个石铜喷泉 depicts 就描绘了食人怪吃小孩呀，然后还有很多其他的不幸的装着幼儿的袋子点点。好，那当然一开始是用木头建造啦，后来就用石头再加以重建。不过呢，这些艺术品啊，都是受到圣经故事还有当地的一些传说所启发的雕塑，而且是很独特的雕塑。所以下次如果还真的可以到瑞士的话，除了它的天然美景，不妨可以到首都 Bern 去看看。以上是我们今天的内容，我是 Anna， 我们下次见。
That's all for today, guys. We hope you enjoyed our travel unit and learning a little bit more about Bern, Switzerland. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.